Animal Farm by George Orwell. It's a 140-page book about animals on a farm which overthrow their human captors. And it sounds adorable. It does. You think it sounds like a cartoon. But let's not forget, Watership Down is also a cartoon about animals. That's the best way I can get you in the right headspace for this book, because it's not a cute book. It's not adorable. It's not sweet. It's not a feel good type book. There's not a redeeming, I'm so happy I read this book. No, this is the kind of book that you finish and you feel empty and you feel like you got to fill yourself up with something, be it food, drugs, sex, sunlight, something. Like, you finish this book and you can't just sit there and just be okay. I couldn't. The last time I read this book, it was like 4 or 5 years ago. I was about 23, and it still scared me. This time I was reading it still scared me. And I'm not sure if it's because I just haven't matured, or it's because Trump is in the White House and we are, facing. We are closer to fascism than we've ever been in the history of this country. But me being a scaredy cat aside, let's get onto the book of Animal Farm. So, Animal Farm takes place, fittingly enough, on a farm, and the story revolves around also animals. Not any animal in particular, but there's some main ones, some animals that are more important than others. So it starts off when this pig called Old Major, he had a dream. And he couldn't really remember the dream, but he still thought that it was enough to warrant having a big meeting. So everybody went because everybody, liked Old Major or respected him. And he said, "Calm down, I can't remember this dream. But I will tell you two things." And the first thing he tells them is that animals have been mistreated for too long, and it's not right that humans get to consume everything without creating everything. And of course, this is based on Old Major is basically Karl Marx, that he's saying that like the rich consume but the poor create, and the rich don't create but yet they get to consume. And so he's saying that someday human beings will have to answer for what's going on. They will be kicked aside. They will lose their throne of power. And the animals will revolt. And he says he doesn't know when this is going to happen. It's definitely not going to happen within his lifetime. And it doesn't, because he dies 2-3 days later. Or a couple weeks later, he dies really, really quickly after this. And the other thing is, he teaches them a song called "The Beast of England," and it's kind of like it's a wailing for a better time, and that's all it is. It's just kind of like this throughout the book. They tell you the lyrics, but the lyrics, they don't stick for some reason. You can look it up, but basically they kind of use it as a song of rebellion. And so, yeah, Old Major, animals will revolt, and here's a song of rebellion. So he dies, and a rebellion happens. It wasn't because of Old Major. Well, no, it wasn't because of Old Major. What happened was, they were on a farm owned by Mr. Jones. And yeah, he wasn't the best of men. He was a good farmer. It even went out of its way to say, yeah, he was a good farmer. He was hard on the animals, but he made sure they were always fed, and he always did his crops well, and so he had money and he fed them and everything. And so what happened with Mr. Jones is he lost some kind of legal pursuit. I'm not sure if he was suing or he was being sued, but he became really depressed, so he kind of like fell into alcohol, which I'm told many people do. Have you ever tasted alcohol? I don't know how people get into it. I can't stand the taste. Fine, whatever. He becomes a drunk, and the thing is, he didn't hire the best men. All his workers, they're lazy, cheats, and so if he's not there to manage them, they don't do anything. So the animals didn't get fed, and they were constantly hungry, and one thing led to another, and eventually the animals kind of like in this. You ever see a scene where there's this big mob of people and they're all pissed, but nobody wants to make a move. Nobody wants to go forward. Nobody wants to throw the first smack or whatever. Well, something happens, and it's basically glass thrown against the wall because all the animals just attack. They fling themselves at the humans and they just drive them all off the farm. And so they realize, hey, we have this farm to ourselves. So they're for the first couple of days they're enjoying it. They walk around, they tour places, they look at everything, and they're like, this is ours. This is really ours. It's kind of like if when you're little and somebody gives you a $20 bill and you're like, holy shit, this is mine. I don't know what to do with it. I mean, people they trade these. I can get something with this. I can enjoy this. This is mine. And so eventually the pigs, and there's these two main pigs in particular because throughout the book, pigs are said to be the smartest. Well, there's two animals that are supposedly the smartest after men, but we'll get into the other one. So there's these two pigs that together they create something called animalism, and there's these 7 tenets of animalism. But it's too hard for the animals to remember because the book goes out of its way to point out the animals are dumb and they have a crappy memory. So, excuse me, I just drank a Diet Coke. No, Coke Zero. I don't like Diet Coke. I'll edit that out. So there's these 7 tenets, but they fit it down to basically, four arms, 4 legs good, 2 wings good. 2 wings good, 2 legs bad. And so, yeah, they have the 7 tenets of animalism. But the thing is, there's a clash right away because Snowball and Napoleon, they don't get along very well. They fight over everything. I don't know if the beginning struggles was just because they both were very proud or they both had their own ways of doing things. But they clashed a lot. And the clashing, it came to a head when Snowball, because Snowball was pretty smart. Like, he was legitimately smart. He's smarter than probably most people, because he would go through the farm and he was reading various books and he determined how to build a windmill to power electricity. I don't know about most people, but I couldn't do that. Like, I don't even know if it's intelligence, but I just couldn't sit down and learn how to build a windmill to power electricity. Power items. And so there was this constant debate back and forth because for the windmill, Snowball wanted to build it, Napoleon didn't. And Napoleon, the first really, really big true glimpse into his character was that, well, there's 2 glimpses. The first one is he said, don't worry about, because when they were trying to teach the animals about animalism, Napoleon said, you know what, don't worry about the older ones, they're hopeless. We should focus on the young. So he ended up adopting or taking, it was really more of a just taking, these puppies that these 2 dogs just had, and he said he's going to raise them, so he took them up where nobody could, get to them, and it said every animal forgot about them. Which I thought was just so convenient. There's a lot of convenient things that happen in this book, but this one was so convenient. It's like, I can believe most of the stuff, but these were 2 dogs that forgot about their puppies. Have you ever seen a dog with her puppy? Even if the dog loves you, it's really rare for her to let you touch her puppies. And no, this pig just took 7, just took all of them, and there was not 1 but 2 different dogs that said, oh, okay, yeah, take our puppies. Well, okay, that was the first thing. And the second thing was that when Napoleon was, Snowball was drawing up the windmill, Napoleon one time he came and he looked at it when because all the other animals, they would come and just stare at it because it was amazing, and he peed on it, he whizzed on it, so you could see this is he defiled the image. And so at the end they're having this debate between Snowball and Napoleon. And Snowball's case is that you get the windmill, you have power, you can use it to produce things, and then if everything goes according to plan, most animals will only have to work 3 days out of the week. Because Snowball was more of the humanitarian. And Napoleon just said only a fool would vote for the windmill. And so, of course, the animals voted for Snowball. And then this is where Napoleon takes power, because he let out this weird yelp, and then all the dogs... And I'm not even sure how they came down, because it even said it was a ladder, so I don't know if they jumped down or... He was slowly moving hay to the side of the building so this way they can jump out. But it's just, I don't know how they got down. Like, how do you hide 9 fully grown dogs? How? They weren't fully grown at the time, but they were big enough that the other animals were like, oh shit, no. It's kind of like when... The best way I can put it is that you're in a room, you're filled with like 30 or 40 people, and 3 people have guns. Yeah, they can all take them. They can all, probably take the people with guns. But nobody wants to take a bullet. I don't want to take a bullet. You don't want to take a bullet. So they just sort of surrender after Snowball's chased off the property. And Napoleon, he justifies this by pointing out, pigs are smarter, so they should be in charge. You guys could have made the mistake of voting for... You would have made the mistake of voting for the windmill. And so that's how he justifies it. And a little bit of time passes, and Napoleon decides, hey, we're going to build the windmill. And they're like, well, didn't you... I thought you didn't want it. And Napoleon's like, no, I've always wanted it. It's just... It was a ruse to get Snowball out. And so they start building it, and it's nothing goes easy. It's... At one point, it's even destroyed by humans from different farms that were scared that the animals would incite other animals to revolt. So it's not an easy thing. And when they finally do... build the windmill, they don't use it for power. They use it for grain, because, the animals are... The pigs start trading with humans, and... Yeah, basically it just evolves into this whole work project. Like how the Soviet Union, they were building huge statues or giant walls that were just a huge, or like the wall Trump wants to build. It's just big waste of money just to keep people busy and occupied. Yeah, that's what the windmill was. So by the time they finish, the pigs had basically corrupted every single point of animalism, and the pigs are basically humans. Like, it even says they're wearing clothes, they drink alcohol, they were seen with whips, walking around with whips. There was even some racial stuff, because the pigs didn't let the baby little pigs, younger pigs, play with any of the other animals. And so at the end of the book, after basically it falls into this fascist Stalin type Iron Curtain scenario, they see that the pigs are wearing clothes, and they invite 2 of the other farmers over. And the farmers, one of them, Frederick, which apparently is supposed to he's supposed to symbolize Hitler. He tells him, I'm sorry that we treated you so wrong, and we tried to attack you, and we were constantly, trying to pull the wool under your eyes. But, you guys made it. You cut the animals' rations so much, and you're still getting so much productivity done. I can see a lot of other farms doing this. And so, Napoleon, he gives a toast of his own. Why didn't the animals speak? I don't know. That's just another one of those things where if the animals could speak, why not just speak? Humans would be like, oh, you can talk. You could talk this whole time. Well, you're intelligent. I'm not sure if we're going to... I don't know how much good that would do, because pigs are as smart as dogs. A pig could give a dog his run for his money in terms of, puzzles and stuff, but we still eat the hell out of pigs. We keep them, boxed up little thing like that. And so yeah, maybe, you know what? Okay, I can see why they didn't talk, because it wouldn't have made a difference. Which is gonna go in hand in with another character that I'm gonna discuss. And so, you know, they decide to play a card game, the pigs and the humans, so they got a tour of the farm. And before you know it, they get into a fight because in one game there was a lot more aces played than aces should be played. I think there was like 4, 5, or 6 aces involved. There was a lot more aces than any deck would have. And so there's a big fight, and the animals, they go in and they're looking inside, and they're like, I can't tell who's who, because the pigs' faces had changed, and their clothes and the whips and the way they presented themselves, because they were walking on 2 legs. And yeah, they were the same thing. There was no difference anymore. The revolution had fully revolved, and it ended up just as it was before. Well, I would say a little bit worse, but we'll get to that later. So, whose fault is this? That's the question I ask. Like, when you're reading this, you want to say it's the pig's fault, but is it really? Because there's always going to be people who are trying to usurp power and get people to like bow down to them. And so I don't know if you want to blame the bad guys, because it's always the bad people always want to do bad things, but whose fault is it that they got away with it? I at first I thought there was one character, but I kind of can see his point too, his defense. So okay, let's look at some of the characters. First, let's look at Snowball. Snowball wasn't a bad guy. Nobody would argue Snowball's a bad guy, but in a way he was used as a bad guy, like, because he tried to simplify everything instead of teaching the animals. And maybe you couldn't have taught them, maybe you could have, but he tried to simplify things. And as good as a person he was, that's just not enough. Case in point, at one point in the book, Mr. Jones comes back and to take the farm. And Snowball not only plans an attack, but he leads it. He you know, at one point he's charging, he's the front of the line, first one in. He gets a shot by pellets and his back bleeds. And so you would think, okay, and he was awarded a medal. The animals made him a medal. And, you know, throughout the story, you see that image corrupted. At first, it's like, oh no, when he got shot, it was minor graze. No, he wasn't the first one, and it's little. The animals, the pigs, slowly corrupted. They slowly changed it from the truth, which was he planned the attack, the defense. He was the first one. He attacked. He was injured in the process. To, oh no, he was on the same side as the humans. He was in fact calling them and leading their shots, and it was Napoleon who bit him that caused him to bleed. So it was completely morphed. So again, I'm not saying he's the bad guy, but you know, he ultimately was rendered useless because they just changed his image. And that's one of the things that fascists do. They just change reality. Like recently, Trump. I'm trying not to mention Trump too much, but it's so hard because there's so much of this stuff that does apply to Trump. He came out and he said that he never fired Connolly because of the whole Russian investigation, but he even came out on TV and said, "Yeah, I fired him because of the Russian investigation." But you see, gaslighting is a powerful thing, and there's this character in this book is a pig called Squealer, and he's basically Goebbels or any propaganda machine where he basically twists everything and he says it with such confidence that everybody believes him. So, yeah, the Snowball and Squealer. Squealer was just a tool. He was a tool. I want to say, yeah, it's his fault, but ultimately, him and the pigs, when you look at really the way everything's set up, even with the dogs, they had very little power. They had the illusion of power, but they had very little power. And the reason for that is the next character I want to talk about is Boxer. Now, Boxer was a horse. He was a huge horse. He was, how do I say this? He was the workhorse of the farm. And his thing was, he was dumb, like dumb, like just several times throughout the book. You're reading it, and he says something or he does something. You're like, oh, okay. you put it down and you just want to strangle him for a while. Because Boxer, he had two motives in life. Two models. Models. He had two sayings. The first was, "I will work harder." He really was the workhorse. Like, he was pushing things. He was moving things. He was getting up early to do extra work. It even said that his physical strength was equal to all the other animals in the farm. And the other thing is, he said that Napoleon is always right. No matter what happened, Napoleon is always right. No matter, even when they're telling him, Snowball betrayed us and Snowball did this and Snowball connived with this because we found documents, but you can't read it or we would let you see it. And he even stopped. He's like, well, no, Snowball wasn't like that. No. He was never, Snowball wasn't like that. And finally it came down to, well, Napoleon's always right. And he's like, yeah, Napoleon's always right. So he just sort of accepted it. And the reason why, and him alone is proof that the pigs had very little power. Because there was at one point where the dogs kind of scared him, and he smashed the dog. He sent it flying, and he stood over it, and all the other dogs kind of like whoop. It was only Napoleon saying, "Okay, let him go, back off, don't kill him, don't hurt him." And Napoleon, and of course Boxer's like, Napoleon's always right. And that's the thing, is I think Boxer is supposed to symbolize basically the general population. And I mean, that's the problem with the general population, is they tend to accept leadership and just say, well, this is leadership, they're in charge. That people are in charge for a reason, or we should, they're not intelligent, so they can't really tell when people are being bad or manipulating them. So of course he did. He backed off. But again, he alone had the power to stop the pigs, but he didn't. So yeah, so was it Boxer's fault? Not really, because he was just sort of accepting things. He's a good guy. He had a good heart. He was dumb. Like that's his problem. Like, he's not educated, and you could argue that he's not capable of being educated. So then if it's not Boxer, what about Moses? Was Moses the main one who caused the problems and was the reason for the pigs gaining power and everybody else suffering because of it? No, it wasn't Moses. And Moses was a raven. I forgot to mention. He was Mr. Jones' pet raven, which sounds awesome. I just imagine a pet raven that sits and you can feed it bread, and it's just, you're reading a book and it's just looking at you like, I like this person, because ravens can remember faces. I like this person. Yeah, I'm gonna help him out. And Moses, even though he didn't do very much, he does. I know he's supposed to. He didn't do much. Basically, all he did was he went to the animals and said, "Sugar Kingdom. When you die, you go to Sugar Candy Mountain, and you're just, you relax and you eat candy and graze all day. It's amazing. When I fly up sometimes really high, I can see it." And the first time he appears and he does that, it's kind of like, because he's trying to get the animals to calm down, because he doesn't want Mr. Jones to be kicked out, because he's Mr. Jones's pet. He never works. But the second time is interesting. It's interesting because when he comes back and he starts saying things about Sugar Candy Mountain, about how you die, you go there, the pigs say, yeah, it's not true, but they still gave him beer. So my guess is they were like positioning themselves as different from him. But at the same time, they wanted the animals to kind of like calm down and say, okay, you know what? It's hard now, but it gets better. But again, he only came in two parts, and neither part, it never really made it look like his words or the Sugar Mountain actually made anybody behave or mellow down. So what about generally the rest of the animals? Was it just, everybody's fault? Well, okay, so here's the thing, and this happens in real life too. Like, this happens all the time, and the animals, they kind of forget. Okay, so there's this thing called dissonance. And when we don't have enough evidence for something, or if we want to believe something so we don't feel dumb or inferior to others, because when somebody explains something and you think it doesn't make sense to you, or like there's something wrong here, but you don't want to look stupid, so you just kind of force yourself to believe it. Yeah, that's how these animals were. Like, the book says it's their memory, but I don't think it was their memory. That could be. I don't really have anything to to base it off of the book, but I think that they willed themselves to forget because Squealer sounded so, again, that gaslighting technique. He was so sure of himself. He was so confident. He didn't hesitate for a moment and think, no, it's maybe you're right. No, he always said, hey, this is the way things are. You remembered wrong, but this is the way things are. So they just sort of accepted it. So you can't really even blame the majority of the animals because they were just they're it was in their nature to forget or to accept what was being told to them by the people in charge. Because again, if they're in charge because they're better for us or for a reason or whatever. So and you don't want to seem stupid or feel stupid, so you make yourself accept or forget things that just don't mesh with your worldview. So that leaves one more animal. And this animal, I want to say that it's his fault because he should have done something. But on the other hand, I kind of see why he didn't. And that is Benjamin. And anybody who read the book already knew who I was thinking of because I didn't mention him yet. And Benjamin, he's a donkey. And he's an old donkey. And he even points out, too, that donkeys live very long because, they do apparently, because even at the end of the book, where it was far after that, most animals didn't even remember how things were before the revolution, and they even said, old Benjamin was the same, just a little bit white around the muzzle. But the thing about Benjamin is he's smart. Like he could read and write as good as any other pig. Like it even said he just chose not to because he didn't think it was going to make any good because he said, life's going to continue on hard regardless. He was basically Eeyore, but smart because he was still negative. And he didn't do anything. He never did anything. He never worked towards anything. The only thing he really cared about is he liked Boxer. He was Boxer's friend. And I'm sure there's symbolism there. I want to say that it's because, the intelligent people work with the common people. But I'm not too sure because it would always so weird. But yeah, he cared about Boxer. Like when they sent Boxer to the slaughterhouse. Spoiler: they do send Boxer to the slaughterhouse because he's pushing himself and he's working so hard. His lungs kind of just give out on him. The only time you see Benjamin really excited in the book, or even running, like they even said, we've never seen, none of the animals ever saw Benjamin run, was when the truck came to take him, and he's like, they're taking Boxer. So they went and they were trying to read it. He's like, move, and he's like, it says slaughterhouse. So yeah, he could read and write as good as the pigs, and he was the only one that even understood what the pigs were doing. Like there was this one part with Squealer where they heard a crash and they came in and they saw Squealer with a ladder and a pen or a marker or something, and there was he was by the 7 commandments, and only Benjamin seemed to understand what was going on. When Mr. Frederick launched the secondary attack on the animal farm and he blew up the window and he was drilling a hole in the concrete, Benjamin was like, oh, that's what they were doing, because he understood they were going to explode. They were going to blow it up. He's the only one that saw through everything. And yet he chose to do nothing. And when I was younger, those 4 or 5 years ago, which was never, not by any definition is young, I liked Benjamin because I like this whole, the world's going to be what it's going to be. Why bother? Don't get excited. Enjoy it or don't enjoy it. It's all the same. But now, as I'm older, and we're living in this kind of time period, I'm like, no, you need to say something. You should react. You should, spread the word around. You should talk to the animals. But he doesn't. And maybe he understands that if he ever tried something, the pigs who are just as smart as him would obviously see what he's doing and just kick him out or Oh, and there was some other, because it said one of the other things that they do is like don't kill other animals. Animals your friends, human not. Napoleon has witch hunts. Not really witch hunts, but he gets the animals to come up and he makes them, admit to something and they're slaughtered real quickly. So Benjamin might have been like, well, I can't really do anything, but you didn't try. That's my problem with Benjamin now, is he didn't try. he had all the tools. It was still risky and there was no guarantee, but he never tried. Apparently, the book Benjamin is better because in the book, he leads in the movie. I mean, in the movies, because I haven't seen it in the movies, but there's apparently two that I know of. In one of them, he escapes with some other animals off the farm because, why would you want to stay there? And the other one is he leads a revolt against the pigs. So, yeah, he was my favorite the first time I read it, but now it's just kind of like, oh, you lazy coward. But yeah, so that was Animal Farm. I don't know if I'll ever read it again. I might, just because I'm a glutton for pain and anxiety, and it kind of, when I read this, it's a suitable excuse to feel anxious. So I might not. I would recommend it for anybody who likes, Aesop fables, who wants a shock. This is a shock. So you want to be shocked by how much something can, how bad things can get, how quickly, then I would recommend this book. But yeah, so this is Jimmy22 signing out. Have a good one.